It's 6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Daniel Che for Arirang News. Let's start with the headlines. Ahead of her 10-day diplomacy tour, President Park Geun-hye urges related officials from Korea and Japan to swiftly work towards achieving concrete progress on Japan's wartime sexual slavery issue. Korea's finance minister wants lawmakers to call a truce and quickly pass the national budget plan, crucial to resolving youth unemployment, supporting next-generation growth industries, and assisting small business owners and the underprivileged. Despite the decision to extend discussions over setting constituency boundaries, it seems unlikely it will be enough for lawmakers to reach an agreement within that span of time. President Park Geun-hye once again calls for the swift resolution of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement issue. She made the remarks in a joint written interview with 8 members of the Organization of Asia-Pacific News Agencies ahead of a 10-day tour that will take her to Turkey, the Philippines, and Malaysia. Our Hwang Sung-hee breaks down what she had to say.
On Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women, President Park called for a resolution that can heal the wounds of the past. She expressed hope for concrete progress on the issue, saying Japan is going against international sentiment by dragging the issue out without admitting its wrongdoing. President Park and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe agreed to speed up negotiations on the so-called comfort women issue at their first face-to-face summit in Seoul earlier this month. With both leaders attending a string of multilateral summits starting this weekend, President Park's 10-day tour could provide her with an opportunity to continue talks with Abe. On inter-Korean relations, President Park said she is open to talks at the highest level. This under the condition that there is progress in regards to North Korea's denuclearization and inter-Korean ties. For now, she said the Koreas must work on building trust step by step. On the upcoming G20, APEC, and ASEAN Plus 3 summits, President Park said the leaders will focus on securing inclusive and continued growth. She said South Korea will actively take part in discussions on the Korea-Japan-China Free Trade Agreement and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Deal at the APEC summit. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
As political wrangling continues between rival parties in Korea, the timely passage of the government's 2016 budget plan is at risk. Korea's finance minister is doing his part to persuade lawmakers to come together on the plan and said it is crucial that the deadline be met in order to revitalize the economy. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Korea's finance minister Choi Kyung-won says if the budget plan for next year passes at the National Assembly, the country's growth rate will be boosted by 0.7 percentage points in 2016. The minister adds the plan, worth over $300 billion is crucial in improving the people's livelihoods and revving up momentum for recovery.
In order for the 2016 budget plan to play its part in creating jobs for the youth and revitalizing the economy, I ask lawmakers again to pass the plan by the set deadline.
By law, the budget must be approved by December 2nd, but lawmakers have a poor history of missing deadlines. The current 19th session of the National Assembly that kicked off in 2012 failed to result in the passage of the budget plan by the set date for back-to-back years in 2012 and 2013. Finance Minister Choi also asked for lawmakers' cooperation in other sectors, saying such efforts will help the economy continue the recovery momentum seen in the third quarter.
During this General Assembly, key labor reform bills and economic revitalization plans should be passed as soon as possible, as well as the ratification of the Free Trade Agreement between Korea and China.
Taking into account such measures, the government expects the Korean economy to expand 3.3% next year, up from this year's forecast of 3.1%. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
All eyes and ears are on the U.S. Federal Reserve as it deliberates on whether to raise rates for the first time in more than 9 years. More people are offering their opinion as the big meeting approaches in mid-December. But Fed Chief Janet Yellen is keeping her stance to herself. For more, we turn to Son Jung-in.
The International Monetary Fund has suggested the U.S. Federal Reserve take a more cautious approach before deciding to raise interest rates. In a report, the IMF said the Federal Open Market Committee should delay a rate hike until they see clear signs of inflation rising toward its 2% target. Citing prolonged global financial uncertainties, the report expressed concerns a rate increase could cause financial volatility and abrupt changes in emerging market capital flows. Fed Chair Janet Yellen, who has been calling for a gradual increase, showed a rather neutral stance this time. Speaking at a Fed board conference in Washington on Thursday, Yellen did not address the current policy outlook. She only stressed that policymakers must be mindful of the effects that post-crisis financial regulations can have on the global economy.
It's crucial to understand the effect of regulations and possible changes in financial intermediation on monetary policy implementation and transmission.
But some senior Fed officials are shifting toward possible liftoff. Regional Fed Presidents James Bullard and Jeffrey Lacker said the central bank no longer needed to keep rates near zero as U.S. inflation was near the Fed's goal. Bullard predicted a strong labor market with the unemployment rate dropping to the 4% range. Other global economists are growing more confident the Fed will start upping the rate next month. A poll by the Wall Street Journal found that more than 90% of economists believe a hike will be announced at the Fed's December policy meeting. 손정인, Arirang News.
With the aim of boosting their presence in the highly lucrative duty-free sector, a handful of Korean conglomerates will battle it out to earn a license to sell. The Korea Customs Service will carry out the final review over the next 2 days before announcing their decision on Saturday. For the full story, let's turn to our Kim Min-ji.
Who will it be? Korea's customs agency says it will announce the recipients of duty-free operating licenses on Saturday after a strict closed-door evaluation over the next 2 days. 4 conglomerates, Lotte Group, SK Group, Shinsegae, and Doosan Group, are vying to be granted licenses to operate duty-free stores in 3 locations in Seoul, set to expire this year. 2 companies, retail giant Shinsegae and fashion group Hyungji, are competing for 1 location in Korea's southern port city of Busan. On the first day, the panel will review documents submitted by the companies before presentations by the competitors the following day. The companies will be assessed on various factors such as management capabilities, financial soundness, and contribution to society. There has been intense competition for duty-free licenses in Korea as the business has become a huge source of profit. In 2014, 6 duty-free stores in Seoul posted combined sales of nearly $4 billion. And the competitors are all eager to get in on the action.
서비스업의 삼선전자가 되도록 노력하겠습니다.
동대문이 한국 관광의 구심점이 될 만한 그런 면세점이 있느냐? 없습니다.
서울 관광객 2천만 시대를 만들어가는 데 일조하겠습니다.
세계적인 패션의 컨텐츠는 대한민국의 주의가 최고입니다.
However, some critics say the heated competition raises eyebrows as it could result in unrealistic pledges and targets, insisting that companies should be more focused on providing differentiated strategies for global competitiveness. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Moving on, the 3rd test run of the Najin Hasan project will be carried out next week. However, with negotiations still ongoing, the project most likely won't kick off before earlier next year. Hwang Sung-hee has the latest on this venture that involves trade between Seoul, Pyongyang, and Moscow.
120,000 tons of Russian coal and Chinese drinking water worth 10 containers will be transported from North Korea to South Korea next week in a pilot run of the trilateral trade project between the 2 Koreas and Russia. In what will be the 3rd test since November 2014 of the so-called Najin Hasan project, 2 45,000-ton bulk carriers and a container ship will travel from North Korea's port city of Najin to South Korea's port cities of Pohang and Busan. This after being transported via a 54-kilometer cross-border railway between Russia's border town of Hasan and Najin. Seoul's Unification Ministry said Friday that South Korea's largest steelmaker POSCO, train operator Korail, and Hyundai Merchant Marine will run the pilot from the 17th to 30th, and that along with them, government officials and Russian railway authorities will make a visit to North Korea for on-site inspections from the 17th to 20th. The project's main aim is to benefit all three countries economically, but is also seen as a way to boost inter-Korean ties, as the project is seen as an exception to the May 24 economic sanctions imposed on Pyongyang after the sinking of a South Korean naval vessel in 2010. It remains to be seen when the project will kick off. As the Unification Ministry said, negotiations will take longer than previously expected, meaning chances are high the route won't be officially operational before early next year. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
No deal on redrawing the country's electoral map ahead of next year's general elections. The rival parties gave themselves another month to work things out. Park Geun-hye looks into whether there will be enough time for lawmakers to try and narrow their differences.
Korea's National Assembly Act stipulates that redistricting constituency boundaries be completed 5 months prior to elections. Considering that general elections will be held on April 13th next year, the redistricting plan should have been agreed by Friday. However, with a series of bipartisan negotiations failing to result in progress this week, both parties agreed to discuss the matter for another month in the hopes of narrowing their differences by mid-December. It has become an urgent political matter as the Constitutional Court ordered late last year that the electoral map be withdrawn to realize a more fair representation of the population in each district. As a result, sparsely populated rural areas will lose some constituencies, while more densely populated urban areas are set to gain. And ruling and main opposition party lawmakers representing rural areas have been united in their protests of the negotiations.
None of our demands have been met. This is a betrayal of our rural population's representation and sovereignty, which should be preserved.
The ruling Saenuri Party wants a reduction of the current 54 proportional seats while maintaining 300 seats in parliament in order to minimize cuts to the number of rural constituencies.
Every 4 years, at some point in electoral map negotiations, rival parties reach an impasse. So we need to expedite talks centering on points that we can agree on.
But the main opposition NPAD wants to maintain the number of proportional representation members. The Liberal Party also wants to introduce region-based proportional representatives, determined by the total number of votes received in each region.
The Saenuri Party would benefit the most if the number of local constituencies increases. So we proposed the region-based proportional representation system, but it was rejected as well.
With each pursuing redistricting plans to benefit their own political interests, it remains to be seen whether another month of negotiations can bridge differences between the two parties. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has urged overseas Korean nationals to register online so that they can be eligible to vote in the upcoming general elections in April. Korean nationals residing abroad can register for overseas voting at 169 diplomatic offices around the world starting Sunday until February 13th next year. With registration available online and via email for the first time, the National Election Commission hopes for an increase in voter registration. Online registration was not allowed for the previous 2012 presidential election. The election watchdog estimates 2 million overseas Korean nationals are eligible to vote. The Milan Expo attracted some 20 million visitors from around the world during its latest run. Korea's signature dishes proved to be quite popular with visitors. So much so that experts believe the long-term economic benefits could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars. Oh Soo-young reports.
Italians are known for their hearty dishes with plenty of olive oil, tomatoes and mixed herbs. But in Milan, the country's bustling fashion capital, more and more people are enjoying Korean cuisine. From May to October, Korea showcased its signature dishes at this year's Milan Expo and was among the 145 countries that participated under the theme Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life. During the 6-month exposition, the Korea Pavilion welcomed roughly 2.3 million guests, eager to explore Korean gastronomy. And around 190,000 have visited the restaurant inside the pavilion to taste the country's best dishes such as bibimbap, a spicy mix of rice, meat and vegetables, and japchae, stir-fried sweet potato noodles with strips of lean meat and vegetables flavored with soy sauce.
I chose to try japchae because it's similar to pasta. I like it because the flavor isn't strong, but it's slightly spicy.
The restaurant has generated sales revenue of over $3.7 million. And industry experts say the Korea Pavilion will continue to make substantial economic impact in the next 10 years, worth over $430 million.
The economic benefits will amount to around $440 million, but the cultural impact of tourism, the arts, tradition and history will be much more substantial.
In fact, the Milan Expo has not only attracted food lovers, it's boosted Korea's image. After dropping by the pavilion, the number of people expressing interest in purchasing Korean products doubled to 75%, while those interested in visiting Korea also doubled to 77%. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
That's all from us. Thanks for watching. More at 10 p.m. Korea time.